Hello and welcome to the Bhagavatam. Today we're going over chapters 16 and 17. And the topic is really about Dharma and Karma. So what is the Dharma of Karma? That's how I've worded it. And really it's a discussion between the earth and Dharma. What is Dharma? Dharma is actually so many people mistake the word dharma for religion. It is not. It is not about any organized system. It is about actually the nature of things, the nature of reality. And it is what it takes for us to be in alignment with that nature. So when I say the nature of reality, let me put it very simply for you. For example, the nature of water is that water is wet. The nature of sugar is that sugar is sweet, and so on. Right? So what is the nature of nature? What is the nature of this earth and this planet? And what does it take to live a life that is in harmony with the planet? You see, we've created a civilization that is very busy in trying to further its own interests without caring about the planet or anybody else. We've created systems that we call capitalism, for example, which is about capitalizing, which is about exploiting, if you really study the etymology of the word. And to capitalize or to exploit means to take advantage of. And when you take advantage of something, you're caring about you and not the other. And as long as we've constructed structures, societies, cultures, economic systems that are based upon taking care of oneself with no regard for what happens to the other, then we are in disharmony with nature. Because dharma is not about taking. Dharma is about giving. And in fact, it's been shown in the study of psychology, especially in the field of positive psychology, that the greatest happiness a human being gains is when they contribute in some way to the well-being of others. And that's why the greatest spiritual teachers of all time have always encouraged us to be able to give and not take. Right? It doesn't mean you only give. Of course, you need things to live in, to live on. You always need a way to, of course, be able to take care of yourself, for sure. But if we are all contributing and giving to each other, we will create a very different world than if we are just trying to take from each other. And therein lies the difference between a great civilization and a civilization that will not last long. So ever since the time of the colonialists who traveled all over the world, including their discovery of America and of India and of so many other countries along the way, they've been taking and taking and taking. And there's a limit to what the earth will endure, what people will endure. Eventually, you've seen in so many of the countries where the colonialists went, people broke free. As in India, as in so many other countries. People broke free of their oppression. And then there came a new era, after the World War II especially, an era of economic exploitation. And yes, some countries prospered out of that. But eventually, the dragon rears its head. And eventually, what we exploited comes out to get us. It is never a winning game. So, this conversation today is a conversation about Dharma, the understanding of the nature of this reality, the nature of the earth, the nature of who we are, and how we can be in harmony rather than be out of sync with life. So, it seems in many ways that we've made a lot of progress. And I will say, we've made a lot of progress. Science and so on and so forth, technology, and yes, of course they've made a lot of progress. But if the progress we've made has made everything around us contaminated, the air we breathe, the water we drink, the food we eat, has it been worth it? People have tried to make changes to this system by holding protests, appealing to governments, trying to bring awareness. We've tried many ways in which to be able to change this, yet the machinery of the industrialized world goes on. However, there's one thing we haven't done, and that is to change our own consciousness. And what does that mean? It means that we begin to develop the most important quality that a human being can have, the ability to see all humans, all animals, and all aspects of nature as none different than ourself. We begin to see that, we realize that everything and everyone is no different than I am. When I take from them, I take from me. When I give to them, I give to me. At a deeper level, to realize that we are not different than God, and God is not different than the creation. You cannot separate the artist from the art. You cannot separate the creator from the creation. And many people do. They believe in a certain religion, and then they don't give a damn about the people of the world, or they don't give a damn about the planet itself, and you can't do that. I'm sorry, there is no harmony here. There has to be an integrative approach that brings together the creator, the creation, and all the beings that live in it. When we begin to see this, then we will begin to respect, when we start to live from this consciousness, this awareness that I am no different than you, and I am no different than God. It's not that I am God, but I am not different than God. We have the same properties as God, the same qualities. We don't have the same power, the same magnitude, the same ability. But yes, we have that very godlike nature within us. And if we want to begin to bring harmony to this planet, we first need to bring harmony into our awareness. And that begins by changing the way we see the world and the way we see each other. And when we do this, we will begin to truly respect ourselves, each other, all the creatures, and the planet. Now, we don't have to. We can keep going down this road of greed and face the karma, the consequences of our actions. I've been coming across a lot of material these days about where we're headed. It doesn't look really good, right? The outcomes of our foolishness are around the corner, and they will shape the world in the following decades. Our children or our children's children will definitely reap the consequences of our foolishness. And maybe we will too. We'll start to see some of that happening at many levels. So to begin with the Bhagavatam here, as we are starting with chapter 16, it says here, lazy human beings with paltry intelligence and a short duration of life pass the night sleeping and the day performing useless activities. What is it saying here? Lazy human beings with paltry intelligence. What does that mean? So, the understanding in Vedic times of a intelligent human being and of a person who has truly devoted their life to something meaningful, has made good use of this human form of life, is not that you just use your life for survival, or even for health, or even for education, or even for pleasure. I mean, these are all wonderful things and we need them. But if you were to look at it from the idea of Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you begin to understand survival is right at the bottom of that pyramid that he made. And what is at the highest level is self-actualization. Paltry intelligence is simply to live at the level of survival. And that, it's not that we don't need to do that. Of course we need to do that. We need to take care of that. But that should not be the goal of our life. Even good health is a very important factor and is a very important piece in living a good life. So is education, and so is pleasure. Everybody wants pleasure. There's no harm in it. But if that pleasure, if that education, if that survival does not lead us to a higher objective, then have we really lived? Has our life been really worth something? If you look back at your life, let's say from the age of 80, you're looking back at your life, and when you consider what you spent it on, yes, you worked hard, you made a living, you bought a house, you bought a car, many cars along the way. You took care of your family, and all this is good. But now the time has come. You're in your 80s, and that time, of course, can come to us at any time. It can come at any minute. But let's say you're in your 80s, as we normally think, or 90s, And that time is coming close, and you don't know when it'll be. It's now closer than ever. How do you justify how you lived? How do you explain to yourself that I spent my life doing all these things, but I did not develop my spiritual awareness? Would it be all right with you? I did not find peace. I did not find love, true love. I did not find that love of God. I never found it. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, then I've used my life in vyarth. Vyarth meaning a sense of, is like a wasted life. I did not use it to cultivate my spiritual awareness, to grow spiritually, because that is the real wealth. Not the wealth of all the stuff we have, not the wealth of all the knowledge, not the wealth of all the things we've done. Those are good, but they are not the real wealth. The real wealth is spirit, the cultivation of the soul, the growth of the soul. Now, the growth of the soul, for many people who are in today's modern day spirituality, they consider it to be, well, you know what? I became more self-aware. I became aware of my ego. I became aware of my consciousness. I became aware of my blocks, and I became aware of my emotions. And I made a lot of progress spiritually. And I said, you know what? No, not quite. You're just dealing with the anarthas. You're dealing with what's in the way. But dealing with what's in the way is not the ultimate goal. Yes, you've got to deal with what's in the way, of course. But you also need to know that there is more to it. The more is about being able to connect with the soul and to be connect with the super soul, the great soul or God. That connection is ultimately the goal of all spirituality. In some ways you might say, I like to break it up and use the word spirit and actuality. So actualizing your spirit, learning to live as a soul in this world. That to me is the gift of spirituality, is the goal of spirituality. And what that means really is as you activate the soul. So what does that mean? It means bringing the soul alive. Well, what brings the soul alive? The soul is not interested in all your mundane stuff and your material stuff. It's not interested in the Netflix movies you watch, and it's not interested in the countries and places you visit. It's not interested in the books you read. It's not interested in any of that. The soul perks up when it hears something of a truly spiritual nature. Only spirit can feed spirit, nothing less. Only that which emanates from the soul can feed that which is the soul. So to understand that deeper, that is why it says here in the next line of the Bhagavatam, the devotees of God are accustomed to licking up the honey available from his lotus feet. What is the use of topics which simply waste one's valuable life? Now, I think with those who have a loving, devotional relationship with God, this part about the lotus feet is very important to understand. We begin our gaze, because we understand God is a being. We start our gaze with that place of humility and of gratitude. We start with the feet. And that is the place of honor and respect. But then from there, we move up to the heart and to the eyes and to the beautiful face of God. So this is an expression that says the devotees of God are accustomed to licking up the honey available from his lotus feet. There is a sweetness in the topics that we talk about in the Bhagavatam. There is a beauty in it. And that beauty, that sweetness is what I want you to experience every time you're here. And I hope that that's hitting home. So understand this, that when it talks about useless activities and passing our time, that is because the wisdom of the Vedas is actually timeless. It was valid tens of thousands of years before it was written, and it is valid now, and it will be valid thousands of years from now. Why? Because it opens our mind. It changes our perspective, our reality. You see, you've all heard the idea that when you change your perspective, your reality changes. That when you change the way you think, right, the things you look at, or what was that? Bain Dyer said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. In other words, your reality changes. So what the Vedas do is they put you into a different time frame, into a place of tremendous possibility. And you really have to open your mind to be able to understand what is being said here. And when you do, when you change that perspective, you open your mind, you're able to see things differently, right? For example, if this life is all there is, then how do I live? There's one perspective, right? If this life is all there is. If this life is eternal, and if I'm a spiritual being, then how will I live? How will I shape my life then? So I want you to think about these questions. If there is no God, then how will I live? And if there is a God, a loving God who wants to have a relationship with me, who wants to have a romance or a love affair with me, or who wants to have a relationship with me, then how will I live? If God will punish me, then how will I live? But if God loves me unconditionally and knows that I'm a nut job and I do stupid things and loves me as I am, then how will I live? Really, contemplate these questions. They're there for you to begin to look at your spirituality in a very different way. To not just take it for granted, because it's not just about reading some books or attending some programs, but it is about being able to really contemplate and then act. All right, so now we're going into the story a little bit, and let me take you one step further. So you've heard of the Pandavas. I'm going to put this on the screen so you can begin to see the names, and that way if you're a little disconnected with what I'm talking about, it'll become more clear here. The Pandavas, as you know, were the 5 brothers, right? 5 brothers who were involved in the battle of Kurukshetra. And we've talked about the Bhagavad Gita, and in the Bhagavad Gita there was Arjun. Arjun was one of those 5 brothers. And the whole time we did the Bhagavad Gita, it was about his conversation with Krishna. His eldest brother was Yudhishthir. So let's go back to the slide here and we'll take a look at that. So there were 5 brothers. The eldest was Yudhishthir. The second was Arjun. Arjun was the great archer and warrior. They were all great warriors, but Arjun was the greatest of the archers of that time. Bhim was a great wrestler. And then there was Nakul and Sahadev. All right, this is giving you a little background so you'll understand what's about to follow. Now, there was the battle of Kurukshetra, and in that battle, the opposite side, not the Pandavas, the other side, the Kauravas, they were defeated. One of the people in that was Ashwathama. He was the son of the Guru Drona. All right, so Ashwathama, and if you've been following the earlier parts of the chapters of the Bhagavatam, you'll know this. He killed the 5 sons of the Pandavas while they were sleeping. He also went one step further. Well, once he did that heinous act, he was arrested and about to be killed, but then because of the compassion of some of the ladies, including Draupadi, whose own sons had been killed, but recognizing that he was the son of their guru, they released him. But Ashwathama wasn't to be deterred. He then tried to kill the last descendant of the Pandavas, their unborn grandson, who was in the womb of Uttara, with a nuclear weapon called the Brahmastra. However, this child was saved in the womb by Krishna. Krishna appeared in the womb and saved him. That child went on to become a great saintly king. His name was Parikshit. We are now going to be talking about Parikshit, so I wanted you to have a little recap and come to the background. So here is that picture of how Krishna appeared as Vishnu within the womb of Uttara and saved the baby Parikshit. All right, so with that little background, let's move into it. Now, Parikshit ruled under the instruction of the Brahmins. Now, during that time, even though you were a great king, you did not just do whatever you felt like doing, because as we know, power corrupts. And absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? We've heard the saying. So the kings lived and ruled under the instruction of the Brahmins. Who were the Brahmins? The Brahmins were the priests. They were not just priests. They were engaged in the practice of Brahman. Brahman is the absolute truth. So their purpose was to cultivate knowledge and awareness of the absolute and to teach it to others. They were supposed to engage in the different ceremonies and rituals. They were supposed to teach others the philosophy. Of course, this all stopped happening in the last hundreds of years, but we're talking about a time when this culture was still very intact and strong. So Parikshit ruled under the instruction of the Brahmins. He was a saintly king, and he is endowed with tremendous good qualities. Now, we've talked about that earlier, so I won't get into it this time. But he was really a person endowed with just most incredible qualities. He married the daughter of King Uttara and had 4 sons. He traveled extensively during his reign, and wherever he went, kings welcomed him and pledged their allegiance. And they narrated to him the glorious activities of his forefathers, the Pandavas, and of Krishna, who had been on the earth at the time when that they remembered. Of course, this baby was just in the womb at the time. So they would tell him about all those wonderful things. And they told him about how he, Parikshit, had been protected by Krishna from the weapon of Ashwatthama, and how by his causeless mercy, Krishna, who is no different than Vishnu and who is universally obeyed, rendered all kinds of service to the Pandavas, to Parikshit's forefathers. Krishna obeyed them like a servant and offered them respects. He was their chariot driver. He was their leader. He was their messenger. He was their friend. And when required, he was their night watchman or their guard. It was amazing that person who has so much power, who is the greatest of all, as he says in the Gita, I am the source of all material and spiritual worlds. Everything emanates from me. Here he was in his Leela, in his pastimes, being just like an ordinary human. Now, as Parikshit was traveling the world and meeting with various people and forming his alliances, there was this conversation that was going on between Dharma. Dharma means the principles. I was telling you earlier, it is the nature of reality. Dharma, some people mistake as religion, but actually it has a much deeper meaning. I will tell you more about it as we go along. So Dharma was there in the form of a bull, and the earth had appeared in the form of a cow, and they were having a conversation. So let's see if we can play this for you. I made a little video. There we go. See, there they are. Dharma and the earth, Bhumi. And they're having a conversation about the advent of Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga is the time that was about to befall the planet. Kali Yuga. Now, some people might mistake that and think, oh no, we're talking about goddess Kali. No, we're not. No, we're not. We're not talking about goddess Kali. We're talking about Kali Yuga. Right? I hope you've seen this. Maybe it wasn't playing at the time. Okay, let's see. Go back again a minute. I have a feeling it didn't play. So I'm going to play it again. Okay, now I think you'll see it. I don't think you saw it earlier. So this is the conversation that is going to take place between Dharma and Bhumi, the earth. A conversation about the time that is about to begin on this planet, Kali Yuga. All right. So Bhumi, the personification of Mother Earth in the form of a cow, appeared to grieve like a mother who has lost her child. She had tears in her eyes, and the beauty of her body was lost. So you get that. Bhumi is experiencing, the earth, Mother Earth is experiencing great sadness in this personification as a cow. Dharma, in the form of a bull, inquired from her, "Are you not hale and hearty? Why are you covered with the shadow of grief? It appears by your face that you are suffering from some internal disease. Or are you thinking about some relative who is away in a distant place?" Dharma, it keeps trying to figure it out. You know how sometimes it happens, you meet a friend and you're like, hey, what's up happening? What's going on? Something happened? Your friend, your family, you're this, you're that. You start asking all kinds of questions, right? So Dharma is inquiring. Dharma then speaks about himself as a bull. He says, I have lost 3 legs and am now standing on only one. Dharma was the age of Kali had begun and the dharmic principles were being lost. What are some of the dharmic principles? The quality of mercy, the values that we have, austerity, simplicity. These are the qualities of Dharma. So he says, I've lost 3 of my legs and I'm standing on only one, which was truthfulness. Are you lamenting for my state of existence? He asks Bhumi, the cow, the Mother Earth. Or are you in great anxiety because henceforth the unlawful meat eaters will exploit you? As has happened, you've seen now people eating the animals, eating cows, exploiting these animals, raising them in farms, thinking that, oh, we are growing these animals. No, you're not. These are living beings. And you're eating living beings. It's no different than eating a human. Yes, their consciousness is not the same as that of a human, but they suffer as we suffer. They endure the same kind of feelings as we have. They may not have the vocabulary to speak as we do. They may not have some of the intellect that we have, but they suffer as we suffer. So Dharma is asking, or are you in great anxiety because henceforth the unlawful meat eaters will exploit you? Or are you grieving for living beings because of their sufferings due to famine and drought? See, they were all able to see at that time that there is going to be a time, and we're coming there right now. As I said, we have around, I think, 7.5, maybe 8 billion people on the planet today, and we're headed towards about 10 billion. There is not enough sustainable infrastructure for that. And we will start seeing not only climate change, but tremendous famine, drought, all kinds of upheavals, even in the next 20, 30, 40 years. Those are not predictions of any scripture, those are the predictions of scientists. So Dharma continues, are you feeling worried for the unhappy women and children who are left forlorn by unscrupulous persons? Well, we're seeing so much of that happen today. So many women, they're made pregnant and then the men just kind of move on. There's so much of that. Take no responsibility. And so you have a lot of children who are being raised just by single parents. Sometimes it's just a father, sometimes it's just a mother. But that commitment to really being able to raise a family and to keep that family structure is sort of has fizzled away. And we're seeing the consequences of that in the kind of effect it's having on the population as a whole. So again, these things are being foreseen at that time when they did not exist, thousands of years before all this began to happen. Even if you go back about 300 years, the whole culture was very different. Families stayed together. It was very rare that you saw something break up. But, a lot of that came with the advent of romantic love. I have a whole thing I can talk to you about that, but maybe some other time. That was an invention by humanity. And as we invented that idea of romantic love, we also created certain ideals that were not able to be fulfilled, and as a result of which people would hop around from one relationship to another, hoping to find the one, and that invariably would not happen. So anyway, the breakdown of the family is what has occurred in our time, and this was being foreseen again thousands of years before. And then Dharma continues, or are you unhappy because the wisdom of the Vedas will be distorted by Brahmins addicted to acts against the principles of Dharma? So that's what happened. We saw that in the last few hundred years, where the Brahmins in India, instead of being true representatives of the divine, took the teachings like in the Bhagavatam here or the Gita, twisted them around and presented their own version, one of which was, of course, the idea of the caste system. There was no such thing. Yes, the caste system was mentioned in the Vedas, is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says he in fact initiated it, but it was not on the basis of birth. It was on the basis of guna and karma. Guna means your aptitude, your qualities, your consciousness, and your actions. Well, that is something every modern day person will agree to. Yeah, you got to have the aptitude for a certain job, and you've got to be willing to do it. You got to put in the work too. It's not just having the aptitude, right? Anybody would agree with that. But the Brahmins of the last few hundred years hid the scriptures, hid these teachings from the common man, did not teach them the language of Sanskrit, and corrupted stuff so that it would work for them. So they made it that their children would be Brahmins and their children's children. And as a result, the Brahminical culture was lost. So this prediction was also being made by Dharma while talking to Bhumi, the earth. Dharma continues asking, the so-called rulers are now bewildered by the influence of this age of Kali, and thus they have put all state affairs into disorder. So this was starting to happen back then, and now we see it full blown. Are you lamenting this disorder? Now the general populace does not follow the rules and regulations for eating, sleeping, drinking, mating, etc., and they are inclined to perform such activities anywhere and everywhere. Are you unhappy because of this? O Mother Earth, the Supreme Godhead, Hari, Krishna, incarnated himself just to unload your heavy burden. All his activities were transcendental, and they cement the path of liberation. You are now bereft of his presence, because Krishna had left the world at that time. Are you thinking of those activities and feeling sorry in his absence? Mother, you are the reservoir of all riches. Please inform me the root cause of your tribulations by which you have been reduced to such a weak state. I think that the powerful influence of time, which conquers the most powerful, might have forcibly taken away all your fortune, which was adored even by the demigods. So this is another interesting point being made here, is that even the demigods who have great opulence in the heavenly planets seek to come to earth, because the earth has a very special place. It is considered the middle planet. So some call it middle earth, I think, or the middle realm or something. And the idea is basically that it is the place where there is an equal amount of happiness and suffering. Now, why does that matter? It matters because when you have too much of happiness, too much of pleasure, too much of good times, you forget about spirituality. Well, most people do forget about spirituality. And when you have too much of suffering and you're not even able to basically pay your bills, you're not able to survive, again, you have very little interest in spirituality, though some people do. But when there is a balance between these, and you never know when it's going to be up and when it's going to be down, which country is going to be up, which country is going to be down, which situation, which time period, there's so much of this uncertainty, then there is only one thing you can count on, which is steady, which is rock solid, which will always be there, you can always count on, and that is your spirituality. That is your true power. That is your steady foundation. And when you find that, you never let go of it. You know that even if the world goes up and down, if populations grow and economies fail and wars happen, your spirituality will always be there. Your connection with God will always be there as your anchor. Right? People say, I want to have someone in my life who's got my back. No person can really do that. The real sense of steadiness, or the real sense of security, the real sense of safety comes from spirit. Why? Because spirit is indestructible. It has neither birth nor death. And because it is indestructible and nothing can phase it, it is your true it is the true place of power. It is the true place of strength. It is the true place that you can count on and depend on. So, Bhumi continues describing, in him, in God, in Krishna, lies all good qualities, truthfulness, cleanliness, intolerance of another's unhappiness, the power to control anger, self-satisfaction, straightforwardness, steadiness of mind, and on and on. There's like a huge list of almost, about 40 qualities that she talks about. Pridelessness, fidelity, joyfulness, so much. It is that and many transcendental qualities which are eternally present and never separated from him. Sri Krishna is the reservoir of all goodness and beauty, and he has now ended his transcendental pastimes on the face of the earth. In his absence, the age of Kali has spread its influence everywhere, and I am sorry to see this condition of existence. So that was why Mother Earth was feeling so sad. And Dharma replies, Dharma in the form of the bull, the personification of Dharma, he says, I was greatly overburdened. Oh no, sorry, this is Bhumi talking, the Mother Earth talking. Oh Dharma, I was greatly overburdened by undue military phalanxes arranged by atheistic kings, and I was relieved by the grace of Sri Krishna, who then annihilated all of these and, cleared the earth of all that misery that these people were creating. However, the times were such, this was going to continue. And Bhumi continues, similarly, you were also in a distressed condition, O Dharma. You weakened in your strength, and he also incarnated to relieve you. Who therefore can tolerate the pangs of separation from that Supreme Godhead, from Sri Krishna? He could conquer the gravity and passionate wrath of his sweethearts like Satyabhama by his sweet smile of love. So think of an incredible lover, right? And that's how Krishna is, an incredible lover. And when his beloveds, like Satyabhama, his sweethearts, like Satyabhama, when they would be upset, and every relationship, there will be some reason to be upset, right? But he was able to, with his sweet smile of love, his pleasing glance, and his hearty appeals, he was able to conquer the gravity and passionate wrath of his sweethearts. So all of that which we experience also exists with the divine. When he traversed my surface, the earth's surface, I would be immersed in the dust of his lotus feet, and thus would be sumptuously covered with grass, which appeared like hairs standing on me out of pleasure. Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, had given up her own abode in the forest of lotus flowers and engaged herself in the service of his lotus feet. I was endowed with specific powers to supersede the fortune of all 3 planetary systems by being decorated with the impressions of his lotus feet. But at the end, when I felt I was so fortunate, he left me. So each one of us, when we have that incredible presence of the divine and we feel that, at times we feel we're so fortunate, we feel so blessed. Be careful. If there's any arrogance, if there's any pride, if there's any sense of anything but humility, we lose that connection. Always remember this. The power of your spirituality is in your humility. And to the degree that you feel that you have everything, to the degree that you feel you're so advanced, you feel you've progressed so much, I'm sorry, my friend, you're on your way down. So always keep a humble position. As we said last time, Lord Chaitanya had said, to feel that you are more lower than the straw in the street, to be more tolerant than a tree. That is the state of consciousness in which we can grow spiritually. We now come to chapter 17, Punishment and Reward of Kali. So, while all this conversation is taking place, something else was going on. King Parikshit arrived on that scene while this conversation is happening between this cow and this bull, Dharma and Bhumi, the earth. And he arrives in this scene seated on a golden chariot, and he sees now a low-class man dressed like a king. So this person is like low-class, meaning he's got no good qualities, he's not trained in Dharma. He's dressed like a king, and he's beating the bull and the cow with a club. And the bull Dharma is standing on one leg, trembling and urinating. And the cow Bhumi's legs were being beaten. There were tears in her eyes, and she was distressed and weak. In a deep voice, sounding like thunder, the king addressed the low-class man. Who are you? You appear to be strong, and yet you dare hurt and kill helpless souls who are within my protection? By your dress you pose as a king, but by your deeds you are opposing the principles of the Kshatriyas, the warriors. You rogue, do you dare beat an innocent cow? Because Krishna, who is known as Govinda, the protector of the cows, and Arjun, his dear friend, are out of sight. Since you are beating the innocent in a secluded place, you are considered a culprit and therefore deserve to be killed. So this is the king now who has arrived on that scene. Here's a picture to show you Dharma and Bhumi, the cow and the bull on the right side. And on the left side you see Kali, rather the incarnation of Kali Yuga in the form of a low-class man, and the king there getting ready to kill him. Parikshit, the king, then addressed Dharma in the form of a bull. Who are you? Are you a bull as a white lotus, or are you a demigod? You have lost 3 of your legs and are moving on only 1. Now for the first time in a kingdom well protected by the arms of the kings of the Pandavas, the Kuru dynasty, I see you grieving with tears in your eyes. Up till now, no one on earth has ever shed tears because of royal negligence. See, the kings at that time had this deep sense of responsibility for their subjects, for the happiness of their subjects, that no subject would be treated badly, and that they would stand there to protect their citizens. The king continued to inquire, who has cut off your 3 legs? In the state of the kings who are obedient to the laws of God, there is no one as unhappy as you. O bull, you are offenseless and thoroughly honest. Therefore I wish all good to you. Please tell me of the perpetrator of these mutilations, which blacken the reputation of my dynasty. You need lament no longer now. There is no need to fear this low-class man. And O mother cow, as long as I am living as the ruler and subduer of all envious people, there is no cause for you to cry. Everything will be good for you. A king's good name, duration of life, and good rebirth vanish when all kinds of living beings are terrified by miscreants in his kingdom. It is certainly the prime duty of the king to subdue first the sufferings of those who suffer. Therefore I must kill this most wretched man because he is violent against other living beings. I think there's such a great lesson to be learned here. We in our time take it as normal that this suffering will be caused to other living creatures, be it animals, be it birds, be it fish, be it all the creatures, and to the planet itself, the way we generate garbage and throw it all over. Could be land dumps or whatever, but the point is we are polluting this place with no regard, with complete impunity. And here you have kings who are so committed to their citizens that not even the cow, not even one bull, not even one cow should experience any suffering. The king continues, whoever causes offenseless living beings to suffer must fear me anywhere and everywhere in the world. By curbing dishonest miscreants, one automatically benefits the innocent. An upstart living being who commits offenses by torturing those who are innocent shall be directly uprooted by me, even though he be a denizen of heaven with armor and decorations. The supreme duty of the ruling king is to give all protection to law-abiding persons and to chastise those who stray from the path of Dharma. So now the king has made his powerful appeal, and Dharma replies, these words just spoken by you befit a person of your dynasty. Captivated by the devotional qualities of your forefathers, the Pandavas, even Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, performed duties as a messenger. He served them. O greatest among human beings, it is very difficult to ascertain the particular miscreant who has caused our sufferings because we are bewildered by all the different opinions of theoretical philosophers. So what is happening is there are so many different philosophies, and those philosophies are leading to a degradation of the consciousness of humanity. So Dharma continues, some of the philosophers who deny all kinds of duality declare that one's own self is responsible for his personal happiness and distress. So pay attention to each of these philosophies now. The first is, there is only you and you are responsible for your personal happiness and distress. Others say that superhuman powers are responsible, while yet others say that karma is responsible, and the materialists maintain that nature is the ultimate cause. Of what? Of all our suffering. So you know how it is that some people blame others, they are the cause of my suffering. Nature, the government, they're the cause of my suffering. Right? Or I am the cause of my suffering. There are also some thinkers who believe that no one can ascertain the cause of distress by argument, nor know it by imagination, nor express it by words. O sage amongst kings, judge for yourself by thinking over all this with your own intelligence. So, I want you to think as well. What is the cause of suffering, and why do we suffer? Do write it down in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'll be done with this in a few minutes, and then I'd love to take it up. Parikshit, thus hearing Dharma speak, was fully satisfied. Without mistake or regret, he replied, "O you who are in the form of a bull, you know the truth of Dharma, and you are speaking according to the principle that the destination intended for the perpetrator of irreligious acts is also intended for one who identifies the perpetrator." This is so beautiful. This is so beautiful. I just really want you to think about this. The destination intended for the perpetrator of irreligious or bad karmic acts is also intended for one who identifies the perpetrator. Okay, the wording is a little roundabout and you may or may not get it, but if you, just in case you don't, I remember a wonderful saying someone once said to me, and it stuck. It was that wrongdoer, fault finder, one and the same. In other words, we see that which is in us. So, don't please take this literally. Don't take it that 100% it is an indicator that the reason we see the negative in others, or you see what is wrong in others, because that which we see lies within us. There is an element of that within us. And it has also been said conversely in another part of the Bhagavatam, I think it is, that it is the quality of the wise to see that which is best in others and overlook their flaws. Why? Because they've done that work on themselves, and now because they see the goodness within themselves, because they see spirit within themselves, they now see spirit in others. And when you see within each other the soul, you will not pay much attention to the ups and the vagaries of the body and the mind and all the stuff that it does. You will rather focus on the person for their spiritual essence and see them as that. Someone was saying, how in relationships we look for someone who is this perfect person, but the perfect person doesn't exist. When we meet someone, for example, you're out on a date, you should just go and tell them, I'm a crazy person. This is all the craziness I do. What's your craziness, by the way? What's your flaws, by the way? Right? But we know, we like to, when we go to a job interview or we go to meet someone for a relationship, we always want to put our best foot forward. The reality is, there is no such thing as a best foot. Yeah, we've got some positives. We also have tons of negatives. The place of non-duality, where there is neither positive nor negative, that lies in the soul. And that is the place we need to get to. However, in here the point is being made that wrongdoer, fault finder, one and the same. One who sees evil or sees bad or sees wrong, it is only because that lies within them. So think about that point. I'd love to have your thoughts on it. Then he continues, thus it is concluded that God's energies are inconceivable. No one can estimate them by mental speculation or by word jugglery. In the age of Satya, which is way before Kali Yuga, so Satya Yuga, there's Satya Yuga, the age of truthfulness, Dwapar Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, and then Kali Yuga. They divide time into 4 ages like this. Each of the earlier ones run into millions of years, and then we come to Kali Yuga, which is the shortest of the 4. So in the age of Satya, your 4 legs, so he's speaking to Dharma now, speaking to the bull, Dharma. Your 4 legs were established by the 4 principles of, what are the 4 legs of Dharma? Austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. Austerity means living a simple life, not as we do in these days. So austerity is really about minimalism, right? That's how we would call it today. But living a simple life. Cleanliness of body, cleanliness of mind, cleanliness of everything you intake within your body as well. Mercy, compassion, all of that. And truthfulness. Truthfulness is not just about speaking the truth, that's just one level of it, but being in integrity with your spiritual essence and living your truth. So 4 things: austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. Those are the 4 legs of Dharma. So the king continues, it appears that 3 of your legs are broken to rampant adharma, that is the opposite of dharma, or one might say irreligion, but I'm not really fond of that translation. Rampant adharma is always the opposite of adharma. in the form of pride, lust, and intoxication. So these three things have destroyed austerity, cleanliness, and mercy. What has destroyed it? Pride, lust. Lust is greed also. Okay, it's not just lust for sexuality, but lust is any kind of exploitation. Right? That is the deeper meaning of the word kama or lust. And intoxication, every form of intoxication by which we try to escape and avoid the nature of reality. So he says, in the age of Satya, your four legs were established by the four principles of austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness, but it appears that three of your legs are broken due to the rampant adharma or irreligion in the form of pride, lust, and intoxication. You are now standing on one leg only, which is your truthfulness, and you are somehow or other hobbling along. But quarrel personified, as in Kali, the age of Kali, who is personified by this man who had been beating them, flourishes by deceit and is also trying to destroy that leg. The burden of the earth was certainly diminished by the presence of Sri Krishna. When he was present as an incarnation, all good was performed because of his auspicious footprints. Now the chaste Mother Earth, being unfortunately forsaken by him, laments her future with tears in her eyes, for she is being ruled and enjoyed by lower class men who pose as rulers. King Parikshit, who could fight 1,000 enemies single-handedly, thus pacified Dharma and Bhumi, Mother Earth. Then he took up his sharp sword to kill the personality of Kali, who is the cause of all adharma, or irreligion, if you want to say that. When the personality of Kali understood, and again remember, this is not goddess Kali, please don't mistake that. Kali is Kali Yuga, and Kali is different. When the personality of Kali understood that the king was willing to kill him, he at once abandoned the dress of a king and under pressure of fear, completely surrendered to the king, bowing his head. Parikshit, who was qualified to accept surrender and worthy of being sung in history, did not kill the poor surrendered and fallen Kali, but smiled compassionately, for he was kind to the poor. The king said, "We have inherited the fame of Arjun. Therefore, since you have surrendered yourself with folded hands, you need not fear for your life. But you cannot remain in my kingdom, for you are the friend of adharma. In your presence, certainly, adharmic principles like greed, falsehood, robbery, incivility, treachery, misfortune, cheating, quarrel, and vanity will abound. Therefore, you do not deserve to remain in a place where experts perform sacrifices according to truth and dharmic principles for the satisfaction of the Supreme Godhead. In all sacrificial ceremonies, although at times a demigod is worshipped, the Supreme Godhead is actually worshipped because he is the Paramatma, the Super Soul, the God presence in everyone, and exists both inside and outside like the air, for it is he only who awards all welfare to the worshipper." The personality of Kali, thus being ordered by King Parikshit, began to tremble in fear. Seeing the king before him like the god of death Yamaraj, ready to kill him, Kali spoke to the king as follows, "O your majesty, though I may live anywhere and everywhere under your order, I shall but see you with bow and arrows wherever I look. Therefore, O chief among the protectors of Dharma, please assign some place for me where I can live permanently under the protection of your government." King Parikshit, being petitioned, gave Kali permission to reside in places where gambling, drinking, prostitution, and animal slaughter are performed. Think of these four things: gambling, drinking, prostitution, and animal slaughter. The personality of Kali asked for something more. Because of his begging, the king gave him permission to live where there is gold, because wherever there is gold, now gold of course refers to money, wealth, whatever. Wherever there is gold, there is also falsity, intoxication, lust, envy, and enmity. Again, none of this is necessary, but this is just the nature of where human beings land up. You could say, no, you can have gold and be completely untouched. And of course, Parikshit himself would have had so much gold. He was in a golden chariot. But to have all of that and to not be affected by it, that is the sign of great spiritual achievement and progress. Most people don't have that. And when they do get great wealth, they do become intoxicated by it. And they are willing to do anything to get it. And they do have lust and envy and enmity. So all of that is part of human nature. Rising above it is definitely a challenge. Thus, the personality of Kali, by the directions of King Parikshit, was allowed to live in those 5 places. Therefore, whoever desires progressive well-being, especially kings, priests, public leaders, Brahmins, and sannyasis, should never come in contact with the 4 above-mentioned irreligious principles. Thereafter, the king re-established the lost legs of Dharma, the bull, and by encouraging activities, he sufficiently improved the condition of the earth. The most fortunate Emperor Parikshit ruled the world with expert administration and great success. All right, so with that, we will bring an end to this part of the Bhagavatam. Let me see if you've got any questions here. All right, we've got Cindy, looking forward to your questions. And we've got Alex. Yeah, you brought a good little quote here, like, whoever smelt it, dealt it. Okay. I'm not sure. But I guess that's that idea of what you sow, so shall you reap, or the idea of what you see in the world is what is within you. All right. I think we've got a lovely point by here. Bewilderment of spirit during this Kali Yuga feels like roaming through a perplexing wilderness. Why, through millions of years, must a period of Kali Yuga be repeated? The witness who observes faults of others is perhaps a reflection of themselves. Okay, so first, why does this exist? All right, so to understand that, I have to answer a deeper question. Cindy, thank you so much, by the way, for your lovely questions. I really appreciate them. And I encourage all of you to join in asking questions. It really brings a wonderful flavor to all these talks, and I really value that so much. Really appreciate it. All right, so why does something like Kali Yuga exist? Why is this happening? Firstly, understand why the world exists. Why are we here? And why is there a spiritual world somewhere else where people live forever and there is a God and all that stuff? And if we assume all of that to be true, and if that is true, then why are we here going through the difficult progress or process of birth, of death, of old age, of disease, and being able to survive and the struggle for survival and all of that? Why are we going through all this? And to me, what I've been able to learn and realize in time is that this place is a place where we are given freedom, free will. Why free will? Why was free will given to us? Why were we allowed to do anything we want? Because there is one objective to this whole journey, and that objective is love. That love is the nature of the relationship between us and that which we come from, God. That is the relationship we have with God. Is a relationship of love. Now, love cannot be forced. Love must be chosen. And if you come from an environment where everything is light and where everything is love, well, then where's the choice? There is no choice. There is no freedom. There is no free will. So a world had to be created where you were given the freedom to think, to be, have, and do anything you desire. And that was this world, and the many other planets that are there along with it as well in the material world. So given all of that, given that that's why we're here, there are then different phases within this. Within this, there are times where things are a lot better. There's the Satya Yuga, time of age of truthfulness, where everything is good. And it's called the Golden Age, and where humanity is at its best. And then it degrades further. Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, and then Kali Yuga. And as the consciousness of humanity goes down, something else happens. You see, some people, they learn just by telling them something. You just read something out of a book or out of scripture, out of some different teacher might come along, and they learn from this person, and they get it right away. They're ready, they want it. And others don't. Others are too entangled, others are too attached. They want what they want. They're out pursuing their dreams and trying to fulfill their desires. Well, then it takes some hard knocks, some things happening that really mess up everything for them to wake up. Many don't wake up even then. But the intent is for us to wake up and for us to realize that what we are seeking is not attainable here. We're not getting it. We want happiness, but we're not getting it. We want love, but we get it for a little while, no doubt. But it's temporary and it doesn't last. Not the way we want. We want eternal love. We want eternal happiness. We want eternal life, and we're not getting it. Right? We want eternal youth. We want expanded wisdom. We're not getting it. So that's where we start to look beyond the world. Is there something beyond this? And just like anything else, you start off with the possibility. Okay, if there was something beyond this world, what would it be? So you may say, oh, well, I don't know if there is a God or anything else, and I'm going to stay with my doubt, and I'm going to stay with my, not wanting to understand. But all right, well, what if there is? And what if you do have a relationship? What would it be like? That's how I started off today. Say, asking yourself those questions. How would your life change if you considered some deeper questions? What if you are an eternal being? What if you are deathless? What if you are here on a journey to learn about what really matters? And that is, who am I? Where did I come from? And what is the source of it all? To explore those questions, not get stuck on one possibility, but to explore different possibilities, and then to think that maybe all those possibilities exist simultaneously, right? Somebody might say God is an energy or a light, and you're right. And somebody might say God is a person, and you're right. God is love, and you're right. And God is also there, destroying everything, and you're right. Creation and destruction go hand in hand. Love and longing go hand in hand. Beauty and ugliness, light and dark, go hand in hand. You can't separate them. Okay, we have one more question here. Let me first switch over. Okay, would any of you like to ask anything in person? You're here on Zoom. If you've got a question you'd like to put forward, be happy to have you turn on your camera and your audio, of course, and I'd love to have you here asking any questions that you might have. Meanwhile, I'll just take up the other point that Cindy came up with. The witness who observes faults of others is perhaps a reflection of themselves. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That which you see in others lies within you. You wouldn't see it if it didn't exist here, right? But seeing it doesn't mean you are it. Keep it in mind. I might be able to see the ugliness in the world. I might be able to see the evil, and sometimes I'm even fascinated by the craziness of, let's say, a psychopath or of a ruler who's doing crazy things. I may be fascinated by it. Doesn't mean I am it. I have in me everything. I have in me all possibilities. But which possibility am I choosing to live by? That's what matters. What have I devoted my life to? That's what matters. What is it that I'm doing to raise my awareness and my consciousness? Being spiritual doesn't mean you're only going to look at that which is good, you're going to be positive. No, it does not mean that. You got to be able to look at the light and the dark. You got to be able to look at that which is good and that which is bad, and have no judgment about either one. And that's witness consciousness. That's that place where you can be the witness, but you don't have a judgment about it. Do you understand that light is not better than darkness, that good is not better than evil, or that right is not better than wrong? All of these things have their purpose and they have their place. Kali Yuga is as important as Satya Yuga, right? The saint and the sinner, they both hold pieces of the puzzle. And we need to know how to tap into each of them. Then there is wisdom. That's what the Bhagavad Gita talks about. It calls it samadrishti, equal vision, or equanimity as it is now called. Right? Samadrishti. That is the same. Drishti means vision. So you have a vision of sameness. Right? Therefore, gold and dirt are the same. A person who is a saint and a sinner, a murderer and you see them all as the same. There is no difference. Just playing different roles, playing different parts. As Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage and all the men and women merely players or actors. They have their entrances and their exits. Then he said, out, out, brief candle, life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage and then is heard no more. That's just it. That's all there is to it. And it's interesting that someone who was a poet and a writer got it. He got it back then. And I think it's time for all of us to get it too. And if you got it, then how does that change your life? That's what I'd love to hear from you. So either now, if you want to put it down as a question, or write to me at any time if you like. Always happy to engage with you and always happy to hear from you. If there's nothing further, thank you so much for being here. Jai Shri Krishna, Hare Krishna, Radhe Radhe. Thank you all. I'll see you next week.